Welcome to Echoes in the Gallery. I am your host, Susan L. Sistrunk. As an artist and educator, it is my privilege to bring you my original podcast set in a series of volumes. Each episode will air weekly on Spreaker, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. Tonight, in Episode 4 of Volume 2, Memories, we will delve into the traumatic past of Daniel. What shaped him? Why is he obsessed with Victoria? Let us step into the gallery and begin. Chapter 4. Memories. That stupid bitch, the man thought to himself. What was she thinking? There was no way he was going to fall for her little tricks. How could Victoria even presume he was so daft as to fall for her charms now, when she had blown him off so coldly before he had taken her? It was insulting. She was going to stay with him until the book was finished the way he wanted. Case closed. The man was pacing rapidly in the kitchen. He had everything on his side. Everything. No one knew who he was. There was no mention of Victoria in the news. Obviously, they were trying to keep things quiet to minimize the publicity. The authorities probably thought Victoria was taking some sort of unscheduled sabbatical or vacation. He was in the clear. Nothing could stop him. And even if it did break in the press, so what? No one could find him here. And it would be impossible to connect the two of them. He needed to get some sleep. During this entire thought process, the man had not stopped his rapid pacing while muttering under his breath. She would be fine there for a while. It would do her good to sit and think about her actions. Victoria would not be trying that again any time soon. The man moved into the small bedroom and lay down on the twin bed. This place held so many memories for him. How could it have ever been sold by his family? It had been such a betrayal. As his eyes grew heavier, memories came flooding into his subconscious. The good memories and the bad. The summer heat bore down on his 10-year-old frame as if heaven had opened up a furnace onto the earth. Sweat poured down in waves beginning at the crown of the boy's head, traveling as a river upon his body. The axe swung in rhythm down the log in front of him, the dull blade chipping at an agonizingly glacial pace. Father was out of sorts again. The smelly drink in the brown bottle had given him bad breath and a temper to go along with it. "Go outside and cut up the firewood, boy," Father had shouted before kicking him in the ass so hard it hurt. Mama had run away last year. The yelling had turned to bruises. When the bruises turned to a broken arm, her eyes had glazed over, giving the look of a dead person. One morning the boy went to the kitchen and found a note with his breakfast. "I am leaving. I can't take care of you. If you are smart, you will leave too." The boy had hid the note from his father, not wanting Mama's last words ripped to shreds. Every once in a while, the boy took the note out and read it, crying softly. He should leave, he knew that. He couldn't go to the police. Daddy was one of them. The only option was to run away. If the boy was found, they would just bring him back, and it would be worse. It was best to stick it out. Daddy's brother was coming to stay. That might make things better. Uncle Steve arrived, and it did not make things better. He and Daddy stayed up drinking all night, and they would start arm wrestling and talking loud. Daddy went to work for a few hours during the day, coming home at lunch for a few beers with Uncle Steve, saying a country police officer didn't have much to do all day anyway. The boy wished school would start up again, but there was still another month to go, so he passed his time reading in his room and chopping wood. Those activities seemed to keep him just on the periphery of the adults, and the only time he was spoken to was on the rare occasion his father made dinner. But then Uncle Steve got really drunk one night and decided to play a game with him before Daddy came home from work. "Hey there! Get your nose out of that book. I'm bored and your dad isn't home yet. The words came out slurred, as if a dictionary thesaurus had been poured into a blender and been set on puree. The boy looked up warily. He hated being alone with Uncle Steve. He never let him be when Daddy was at work. At least when his father was home, the two of them could amuse themselves while drinking. Aw, Uncle Steve, I'm at a really good part of my book. I just want to read right now. Sometimes this approach worked, but not tonight. Damn it, I said get over here, Steve shouted, pointing his finger in the boy's direction. He better do it or else Uncle Steve would tell Daddy he'd been defiant. The last time that happened, Daddy had left his rear black and blue and he hadn't sat down for a week. The boy sat down timidly on the sofa, wincing in pain. Uncle Steve grinned and pulled out a gun from his back pocket. You ever play Russian roulette? He asked, opening the cylinder of the .38 Special. The boy started to shake with fear, and his words shook coming out of his mouth. No, and I really don't want to. Shut up, you stupid little brat. You're going to do exactly what I tell you from now on. Just then, Daddy burst in through the door. Steve, what the hell are you doing? Get away from my boy. With that, Daddy yanked Uncle Steve backward and began punching him in the head. Leave him alone, you crazy bastard. I've about had it with you lazing around here anyway. The boy hid in the corner as Daddy tossed Uncle Steve and his belongings out the front door. You'll see me again, brother. Don't you worry. I'm going to show up when you least expect it. With that, Steve began wobbling down the driveway to the road. Daddy stood and stared down the driveway toward where Steve had walked off. Even though the boy was dreadfully afraid of Uncle Steve, he felt bad for Daddy. Uncle Steve was the only family Daddy had. And now that Mama had left, that was gone, too. After a few moments, Daddy turned around with tears in his eyes. I'm sorry, son. I should have known better. I never should have left you alone with that maniac. From that night on, Daddy never touched alcohol again. Not a drop. He cleaned up and put everything he had into being the best he could for his son. Dinner was always on the table, the house was always clean, and his homework was always checked. It was too late, though. The boy had seen the dark side of life, and it had touched him deeply. He appreciated his father's willingness to try. The fact was, the damage had been done, and a part of him could not forgive his father for everything that had happened. The boy never lashed out at his father. He simply retreated into his own mind. Books became his best friends. His mind went to places of solitude. He kept to himself throughout his school years. People and close personal relationships didn't interest him. The boy discovered an interest in planes and flying early on during high school. The thought of getting into a plane and traveling wherever he wanted was intriguing. The calm air of the sky. No one there to bother him or disappoint him. There could be nothing of the sort in such an environment. In high school, news came that his grandfather on his mother's side had passed away and left him some money. A lot of money. He could do whatever he wanted. So he chose to fly. He excelled at it. Flying an airplane was just as incredible as he thought it could be. And the man began to spend every possible moment in the air. Flying an airplane was just as incredible as he thought it could be, and Daniel began to spend every possible moment in the air. An opportunity presented himself to work for a private employer, and he took it immediately. It was perfect. Solitude when the client was not on the plane, and the man was free to read his books whenever he wanted. And that was how he discovered Victoria. Her words were magic, washing over him like silk. She made the scenes come to life in his mind, and he felt a peace as never before in his life. It was amazing. He began to think of nothing but her and her books. when the next one was coming out. What was she like? How could he meet her? She didn't know it, but he hadn't just read her books. He had learned everything about her. And Victoria was hiding something. She wasn't quite as squeaky clean as her public image would lead everyone to think. All of that inspiration for art theft and forgery had to come from somewhere, and Daniel had figured it out. He awoke with a jolt. Now she was here. Victoria was in his house, and she was trying to trick him. Well, he wouldn't fall for it. Daniel crossed the room and opened a drawer. Time to remind her of what he would really do to her if she didn't comply. Torture was just the beginning. He could destroy her entire life. It was time to let Victoria know what was going on. Daniel grabbed a flat package wrapped in brown paper tied with string and walked calmly back to the basement. He unlocked the door and Victoria looked up at him in fear. Her damp hair still clung to her forehead. "I think it's time I let you in on a little secret." Daniel handed her the package. With trembling fingers, Victoria opened the paper. Daniel sat on the bed with a bemused smile playing at the corners of his lips. When the paper ripped off the package, a low moan escaped Victoria's throat as moisture gathered in her eyes. The painting, the Rembrandt she had forged in college, was staring back at her. There is more where this came from. You are going to do exactly what I say, Daniel said with a confident smile. This concludes tonight's episode of Echoes in the Gallery. Be sure to stay tuned for episode 5 of Volume 2, Panic, where we will find out about Victoria. What is she hiding? She is not quite as innocent as we think. She has her own secrets and will do anything to keep them hidden. Until then, this is your host, Susan L. Sistrunk, wishing you a good evening. Stay safe and love each other.